Hello everyone and welcome back to SFF180. I hope you all had a wonderful holiday, although I know the holiday season isn't great for everyone. But today, I'm glad to have you back for my list of anticipated science fiction releases for 2019. Now, all the usual caveats apply, right? As I said in my anticipated fantasy episode, all release dates are subject to change and/or cancellation. All release dates given are for the US only. And this list only goes into the early fall, as most titles coming out towards the very end of the year probably won't be announced until the spring or summer. Again, I am also not really including any sequels here, so nobody needs to remind me that the 8th Expanse novel is on its way, okay? Trust me, I am aware. I have a full 24 titles to tell you about, so open up your Goodreads and settle in. But even with all of these books, the list is hardly complete. Suffice it to say, despite rumors of science fiction's low popularity, or even its impending death, the genre is going to be thriving next year with enough exciting new reads to fill anyone's bookshelf. So, let's check them out, shall we? Here are my anticipated science fiction novels for 2019. We begin January the 8th when Harper Voyager releases The Lost Puzzler by professional violinist Ael Kless. It's a post-apocalyptic story that includes cyberpunk elements and that subverts the Chosen One trope as a historian is assigned the task of locating a lost child who may be the key to restoring civilization. On February the 12th, Charlie Jane Anders delivers her second novel, The City in the Middle of the Night. Taking place on a planet that does not rotate on its axis and where people live precariously in two cities located right along the day-night terminator, it's the story of a young student who must survive being exiled into the frozen dark side by forming a bond with the creatures that live there. On March the 5th, Elizabeth Bear releases Ancestral Night through Saga Press about a deep space salvager and her partner who make a shocking alien discovery that could plunge humanity into all-out war. March the 12th sees the release of If Then by Kate Hope Day. Now think of this as a literary slipstream novel along the lines of Station 11. It's about a group of people living in a small Oregon town who begin to encounter visions of themselves from alternate realities, some of which become increasingly disturbing and threatening. On March the 19th, Saga releases Cameron Hurley's The Light Brigade, a military SF novel in which soldiers are broken down into light in order to transport them to the front lines on Mars. One recruit, Dietz, begins to experience combat drops that don't sync up with the rest of his platoons, and his bad drops reveal that the war may not at all be what the corporate brass want the soldiers to think is going on. On March the 26th, Tor releases A Memory Called Empire, the space opera debut of Arkady Martine. It's a political mystery thriller in which the ambassador of a remote station learns that her predecessor might have been murdered and must investigate the killing while staying alive herself and protecting her station from Imperial expansion. Ann Leckie is a huge fan of this one, so perhaps we will be too. Suzanne Palmer won last year's Hugo for her story The Secret Life of Bots, and on April the 2nd, Daw Books releases her debut novel, Finder. It's about an interstellar repo man with the perfect name of Fergus Ferguson, who's on a job to locate and steal back a spacecraft from a ruthless trade boss, only to find himself drawn in to a colonial civil war. This one promises action and wit in equal measure. Also on April the 2nd, if you've ever lain awake late into the night wishing someone would write some terrifying science fiction suspense about caving, well, your prayers have been answered. In The Luminous Dead by Caitlin Starling, a young woman desperate for cash falsifies her qualifications to land a high-paying cave exploration job. But her handler is a manipulator who knows about her deception, leading to a battle of wills between these two deeply flawed women far beneath the planet's surface. On April the 16th, Greg Egan releases his first short novel from Tor.com Publishing. Riffing on the theme of climate change, Perihelion Summer speculates on what happens to the Earth and how people have to adapt when a small black hole with 1/10 the mass of the Sun passes through our solar system. Finally, 2 more books round out a busy April. On the 23rd, Hachette releases Emily Eternal by M.G. Wheaton. Now in this one, Emily is a revolutionary super advanced AI who figures out a way for humanity to survive when the sun decides it wants to start dying 5 billion years ahead of schedule. But not everyone trusts Emily to have humanity's best interests at heart. And also on the 23rd, here's one that might be an absolutely unbearable tearjerker, but yeah, I'm going for it all the same. In C.A. Fletcher's A Boy and His Dog at the End of the World, the remnants of humanity have been getting by in small groups, and everyone values their canine companions, as one does. But when Grizz finds that his dog has been stolen, he embarks on a solo quest into the ruins of civilization to get him back, as one does. Very few writers have achieved great success strictly through writing short fiction, but one of those writers is Ted Chiang, and on May the 7th we get his new collection, Exhalation. Now as you know, Chiang's earlier collection, Stories of Your Life and Others, led to the movie Arrival, and contains more quality short fiction than many writers produce in a career. It will be exciting to see what tales he is offering us this time. There are no fewer than 3 exciting titles arriving on June the 4th. Ada Hoffman's The Outside, featuring an Own Voice's autistic protagonist, is about what happens when a scientist on a remote space station comes up with an invention that ends up incurring the wrath of the AI gods and their ruthless post-human angels who rule the galaxy. Also that day, Saga Press releases The Deep. Now this one is interesting. It's a novel adaptation by the brilliant River Solomon, whose book An Unkindness of Ghosts was one of the most remarkable debuts of 2017, of the Hugo-nominated hip-hop song by Clipping, which is an Afrofuturist tale about the descendants of captives thrown overboard from slave ships who have formed a deep-sea aquatic civilization. The song delivers a lot of narrative in 5 minutes, and I am extremely eager to see what a writer of River Solomon's caliber can do with the material. Finally, on the 4th, Neil Stephenson is back with Fall, or Dodge in Hell, in which Dodge, a gaming tycoon, winds up brain dead after a routine medical procedure goes wrong, has his brain scanned and digitally stored as per his will, and is eventually revived into a digital afterlife that ends up being not quite the utopian eternity one might hope for. A writer I have long admired, Carl Schroeder, is back on June 18th with Stealing Worlds from Tor. It's about a young woman on the run in a mid-21st century surveillance society who decides to hide out among a LARPing community where she can go underground and use her elite hacking skills to defeat the surveillance networks. On July the 16th, Saga Press releases This Is How You Lose the Time War, a novella collaboration between Amal El-Mutar and Max Gladstone. Now it's a timey-wimey tale about 2 espionage agents from 2 different futures on opposite sides who discover each other's existence through letters they leave in the past and who, naturally, fall in love. The premise makes me think a little bit of the parallel reality anime film Your Name, with the addition of warring factions, of course. Hard SF fans, as well as fans of the emerging Chinese SF scene, will erupt in nerdy little squeeze on July the 16th when Tor releases The Redemption of Time, the newest novel translated by Ken Liu set in the 3-body problem universe. This one, however, is not written by Lu Sujian. It's written by Bao Shu, a writer I first became familiar with through a brilliant novella published about 3 years ago in F&SF. A very different writer in many ways from Lu Sujian, and I am really interested in seeing him play around in this sandbox. Pushing on into August, Christopher Brown's Tropic of Kansas had to be the bleakest and most disturbingly brilliant dystopian novel to come down the pike in ages, mainly because it felt so believable a reflection and speculation upon our current troubled times. On August the 13th, Brown releases Rule of Capture, set in the same future, which is being described as Better Call Saul meets 1984, about a lawyer who defends people declared enemies of the state in a near-future fascistic America on the brink of civil war. Nikki Drayden is back with Escaping Exodus on August the 20th. It's a standalone novel described as a blend of SF, dark humor, and magical realism set in a distant future in which the human race has survived by establishing fragile colonies within the bodies of enormous space beasts that subsist in pure vacuum. Finally, on to September, and while this is still a very tentative month, it offers some of the most exciting titles to be announced for the new year so far. Starting with 2 titles on September the 3rd, Sarah Pinsker has established herself as a truly fine writer of SF short fiction with her brilliant story Wind Will Rove winning the 2018 Hugo. And now we're finally getting her first novel. A Song for a New Day is a lot like Wind Will Rove in that it is themed around music. In the future, public gatherings are illegal, making concerts impossible. And in fact, people rarely venture out of their homes at all. Our protagonist is a woman who discovers a way to bring concerts to the people through virtual reality. It's all about the power of music to connect us, and it sounds very much like it embraces the humanist themes Sarah Pinsker is so good at. Also on the 3rd, here is one from the department of Let's Try This Again and See If It Sticks. William Gibson's Agency was supposed to be released, like, literally today, but it's a book that has been pushed back repeatedly, mainly due to Gibson's rewriting it from the ground up following the results of the 2016 elections. It has now been rescheduled all the way ahead for September, meaning that it will be 5 whole years since Gibson's previous novel, The Peripheral. A lot of folks have high expectations for this one, and hopefully it will be worth the wait. On September the 10th, Tor.com Publishing releases what sounds like it will be the single most off-the-chain novel of the entire year. Gideon the Ninth, the debut science fantasy epic by Tamsin Muir, is practically impossible to summarize, but our heroine is Gideon, a reanimated corpse who is tired of her role as a servant among the Ninth House, and whose plans to escape are thwarted by a bunch of bizarre business, involving sword fights, nuns, lesbian necromancers, animated skeletons, and God knows what else. All of it set in space. It has my attention. And last on the list, possibly October 24th, though I hasten to add this date is highly tentative and not confirmed, Anna Lee Newitz follows up her excellent debut Autonomous with The Future of Another Timeline, a mind-bending and thought-provoking speculative thriller about a group of time-traveling geologists who are trying to prevent a dark future from coming to pass. And there you have it! Those are 24 of my most anticipated science fiction releases for 2019. Very incomplete, of course, but still enough to fill up even the most ambitious TBR. So, thank you all for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful and very safe new year. If you enjoyed watching, please, of course, hit that like button, share the video far and wide with all of your SFF reading friends, and above all, please subscribe if you have not done so. That is how SFF180 grows as a channel. You can also support the channel at my TeePublic store and at my Patreon. I've got 3 new Patreon supporters just since yesterday. I want to thank those people and welcome them into Wank's Army. And I want to thank all those folks for their additional added support. I want to thank you guys for being the best viewers in all of BookTube. And hey, until I see all of you next time, happy reading.